How does someone distinguish themselves from another person? In other words, what makes an individual unique from the rest? One answer relates to personal identity, the idea that each person possesses a specific organization of characteristics not found among anyone else. Now, some might reject individuality on the basis that thousands of doppelgangers exist for a given person, where they possess equivalent physical and psychological characteristics. The rebuttal is that each individual is unique, as evidenced by their DNA profile on the molecular level. Additionally, the fact that others have similar characteristics doesn't invalidate the legitimacy of individual uniqueness. Anyhow, the debate about individual distinctiveness and its extent will be left for a later date. In the meantime, we should enable the premise that uniqueness exists within personal identity and its manifestation is different for everyone. This discussion will serve as an exploration of personal identity with an attempt to ascertain what constitutes it and why it's important. An insightful paper on this topic is by the late Derek Parfit titled "Why Our Identity is Not What Matters," where he discusses identity along the lines of psychological continuity and psychological connectedness, the latter being most important. Nothing more will be said about this paper other than you should check it out if you want further food for thought. Digressing now, in thinking about personal identity, we must first identify it. One answer would say memories. Memories create personal identity because they shape a person into who they are at present. This explanation evidently overlaps with experience, and the phrase, "we're the sum of our experiences," is rather fitting. Indeed, it's valid to assert memory as having great significance in our lives. For some individuals, their past is so paralyzing that it feels like they are locked in a stranglehold. It's no secret that past experiences, and memories of them, influence present decisions. To what extent they do so remains a mystery. The problem with denoting memory and experience as comprising personal identity is that once they disappear, then what? If someone were to lose their memory of past experiences, have they also lost their personal identity, or what distinguishes them from others as well? It would certainly set a rather dangerous precedent to classify personal identity as being derived from memory, as persons who lack this function, through disease or trauma, could be said to have no personal identity, if we utilize this definition. Memory and experience don't fit the bill, so what else can be considered? Another answer might pertain to physical characteristics, facial features, stature, body shape, sex, gender, and so on. Note, this discussion won't explore sex and gender as part of identity to a great extent, but it will be remarked that they are important pieces in a grander puzzle. For some people, these characteristics have a significant bearing on their personal identity, even more than any metaphysical dimension, like memories and beliefs. A common example to illustrate this idea is that of an athlete. Their personal identity is heavily tied to their physical appearance, namely, how well they keep their body in shape. Their perception of self revolves around a physical bodily characteristic, how strong they are, how fast they can run, how far they can throw, etc. Whatever they pursue, it's implicit in their existence that athletics establishes most, if not all, of their personal identity. If the athlete example doesn't resonate, here's another one. Think about the models you see in magazines, or anyone who relies primarily on their looks and physical appearance. These people are often quite attractive, and their profession evidently requires their looks. Like the athlete, their personal identity fundamentally requires that specific physical qualities be present. If they're lost, then their identity is sure to follow. As you can probably understand by now, investing heavily in physical characteristics for personal identity is rather tenuous. Looks fade, and that is simply a fact of mortal existence. While physical features are important and have bearing on one's life, a person will be wise to avoid placing all their eggs in one basket. For a bodybuilder, while their identity is heavily tied to their physical appearance, what will they do once they age? Once their physical appearance fades and they are no longer who they once were? Setting physical characteristics aside, an ostensibly stronger answer for personal identity would be beliefs and values. It's our beliefs and value systems that comprise personal identity. This is true, some say, because thought and belief initiate action. They also control instances where we don't act or withhold any external action. Just like experience, beliefs and values play a noteworthy role in shaping personal identity. Indeed, some individuals rely so heavily on this component of personal identity that they are willing to die for it. The obvious example is with ideological extremism and any terrorist acts that arise from the ideology. Warfare as well is often fought along ideological lines, where each side wishes to see their version of justice prevail. Returning to beliefs and values, on an individual level they influence conduct. If someone believes that helping others is important, then they will likely act in a manner conducive to this belief. There's a multitude of examples that could illustrate this concept, but you likely get the picture. This explanation as classifying personal identity is appealing because of how our lives ostensibly revolve around beliefs and values, even more so than physical characteristics. This remark is made because even in cases where physical characteristics are important, recall the athlete and model examples, they still possess a belief or value that justifies their case. The athlete's belief is that physical fitness is vital to their satisfaction, so they pursue it. The model's belief is that physical attractiveness bolsters their satisfaction, so they take steps to enhance it. At the most fundamental level, values attached to physical characteristics ultimately stem from supporting beliefs. Simply put, if you don't value or believe that something is important, you'll neglect it. You might think that beliefs and values is the answer we are looking for, but the same problem presents itself. What if your beliefs and values change? Does this imply that you become a different person, that you've lost your personal identity? If you change your beliefs or value system, then under this definition you most certainly have. The last answer for this discussion about what comprises personal identity is character. An individual's character is essentially how they act and conduct themselves at the most basic level. You might object and remark that this answer is strikingly similar to beliefs, values, and memory. On the surface, this might be true, but one key difference exists. While character is molded by experience, beliefs, and values, it persists when they're absent. If someone loses their memory and their value system along with it, oftentimes their character will remain. A friendly or angry disposition will persist. Character is the least superficial of all aforementioned answers. It's more fundamental than memory and beliefs. A person with a friendly and cheerful character doesn't need past experiences or memories to display kindness. You might question the validity of this answer and say that it sounds like a catch-22. If memories and beliefs are required to formulate character, then how can one's character remain if the former two dimensions are absent? The reply is that character has a mystifying nature. Once it's formed, it appears to stand the test of time. Therefore, the robust nature of character enables it to be the least tenuous answer in this discussion. Here's why. An individual realizes that all the memories they have locked away in their brain are not accessible. You can't recall what you did on that random day 10 years ago because it was insignificant. The events you can remember are there because they have significance. Graduation, marriage, the birth of your kids, etc. Even though you've forgotten the majority of happenings in your everyday life, would you remark that you've lost your personal identity? Of course not, and although you've changed in physical appearance due to aging and have mentally matured, you're still the same individual. What has stood the test of time, persisted longer than your memories, physical characteristics, and beliefs, is your character. So why does this matter? Why should we give so much weight to personal identity? The essential answer rests within the fact that personal identity distinguishes you from everyone else on Earth. Individuals might be similar in their experiences, physical characteristics, values, and beliefs. However, where each person differs, aside from DNA, involves their character. This fundamental value is a sum of every life component, experiences, appearances, and value systems. It exists within each person and has a nature that persists longer than the others. How each person's character forms is as unique as the character itself. But this begs the question, if character appears so rigid, is there any possibility of change? Can character disappear or undergo great alteration comparable to memories, beliefs, and physical appearances? It's possible, but it would probably take a significant event for that to happen. More often than not, this event is rather traumatic and/or inherently negative. Ultimately, all explanations listed above play a vital role in shaping one's personal identity. A person would be wise to remember that they're equally important, and placing all the metaphorical eggs in one basket will lead to dissatisfaction. Everyone is unique indeed, and the exact combination of how much value they place on each variable is different. Personal identity helps define what's valuable for you, and it also helps determine where you'll go. It's a lot like purpose. Difficult to ascertain at times, but once acquired, it provides a firm foundation and illuminates the path forward.